The 20-second decision window. No one really talks about how close modern naval warfare operates to the edge of chaos, until a moment like this forces it into the open. At 3:14 a.m., in the cold darkness over the Bay of Biscay, a silent test turned into something far more dangerous. On board a French carrier, a radar operator wasn't just tracking an object. He was staring at a decision that could ignite an international crisis in under 20 seconds. The contact was small, almost insignificant on the screen. A low radar cross-section drone, barely distinguishable from noise, cutting through the night at high speed. But its origin changed everything. It had been launched from a nearby vessel operating under the cover of civilian activity. One of the many ships that blur the line between commercial traffic and military intent. And now it was closing in fast. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tension wasn't loud. It was controlled, compressed, almost clinical. The tactical action officer didn't have the luxury of debate. 18 seconds. That's all the time available to determine intent. Surveillance or attack, observation or detonation. In modern naval warfare, hesitation is not caution, it's vulnerability. Because the math is unforgiving. A small drone, even carrying a minimal payload, doesn't need to destroy a carrier to achieve its purpose. It only needs to disrupt. A single explosion on a crowded flight deck could halt sortie operations, damage aircraft, and shift the balance of power in a region within minutes. The cost exchange is brutally asymmetric. It's a cheap drone, strategic consequence, the hidden network. Awakens. But what the operators on that French carrier didn't see, what the drone's launch platform never even considered, was that this moment had already slipped beyond the boundaries of a single engagement. Out there, beyond the visible horizon, the ocean was not empty. 50 miles away, in total radio silence, another observer had already found the drone, an American destroyer. It wasn't announcing itself, wasn't maneuvering aggressively, wasn't even revealing that it was part of the fight. It was simply watching. Its sensors had been tracking the drone long before it appeared as a contact on the carrier's radar. Every movement was being measured, every fluctuation in speed, altitude, and direction processed and fed into algorithms that don't react. They anticipate. By the time the drone crew believed they had achieved surprise, the surprise was already gone. And this is where the illusion breaks. This is no longer a story about one ship defending itself against an incoming threat. That model, one platform versus another, is obsolete. What's actually unfolding is something far more complex and far more dangerous. A network. A lattice of ships, aircraft, satellites, and unseen nodes, all fused into a single thinking system. Data doesn't sit still here. It flows instantly, seamlessly, relentlessly. A radar ping on one platform becomes a firing solution on another. A detection in one corner of the battlefield becomes a decision somewhere else entirely. No single unit owns the fight. The system does. And the moment that drone crossed into this invisible web, its fate was no longer tied to the French carrier in front of it. It was being evaluated, tracked, and targeted by assets it couldn't detect, couldn't jam, couldn't even know existed. Somewhere in that network, a solution had already been calculated. Somewhere, a weapon system was already aligning. There's no countdown, no dramatic lock-on warning, no last-second realization, just a silent, tightening sequence of decisions happening at machine speed. The drone kept moving forward, obedient, precise, unaware. But it wasn't approaching a target anymore. It was entering a space where outcomes had already been decided, where the engagement wasn't about reaction, but inevitability. And by the time anyone on that drone realized they were no longer alone in the fight, it would already be over. The North Sea Trigger Event. To understand why the response was so immediate and so decisive, you have to rewind 3 weeks to a seemingly smaller, almost overlooked incident in the North Sea. A British warship had been tracking a cluster of aging oil tankers, vessels operating in the gray zone, skirting sanctions, functioning as part of a shadow logistics network. These ships weren't just transporting crude. They were gathering information, probing responses, testing boundaries. Then, without warning, the situation escalated. A directed energy weapon, a laser, struck the British vessel's optical systems, not to destroy, not to sink, but to blind. For nearly a minute, the ship's visual sensors were compromised in one of the busiest maritime corridors in the world. It was a message, a calculated move designed to measure reaction time, restraint, and rules of engagement. Would NATO escalate? Would it retaliate? Or would it default to procedure, documentation, protest, de-escalation? The response that followed was exactly what the aggressor expected. Controlled, lawful, restrained. And that restraint was interpreted as hesitation, a gap, an opening. But what appeared to be passivity on the surface triggered something else entirely beneath it. Quietly, rapidly, naval forces began adapting. Engagement protocols were adjusted. Sensor integration was expanded. The response wasn't loud, it was systemic. So, when that drone launched in the Bay of Biscay, it wasn't entering an unprepared environment. It was stepping into a trap built from lessons learned just weeks earlier. Silent detection and precision. Strike back in the present moment. The incoming drone continued its approach. But instead of activating high-powered radars, systems that would reveal their electronic signatures, the defending forces did something far more subtle. They stayed silent. The American destroyer tracking the drone wasn't emitting signals. It wasn't broadcasting its presence. It was listening. This is the part most enemies underestimate. Modern detection doesn't always require active scanning. The air is already saturated with signals, commercial broadcasts, satellite communications, civilian transmissions. By analyzing how those signals interact with objects in motion, it's possible to construct a targeting solution without ever revealing your own position. The drone, designed to provoke a reaction, never got the response it expected. At 3:16 a.m., the decision was made. A missile launched. It didn't rely on a single sensor or a single platform. It was guided by a network, data from one ship, infrared tracking from another, fused into a single solution. The intercept was precise, almost clinical. The drone never had the chance to adjust. The explosion itself was small, controlled, but its implications were massive, because that wasn't retaliation. That was a demonstration. Electronic collapse and subsurface message. And it didn't stop there. Moments after the drone had already been absorbed into that invisible network, the environment around the launching vessel began to collapse, not physically, but electronically. Aircraft operating overhead shifted roles instantly, their electronic warfare systems activating with surgical precision. Without a visible strike, without a single kinetic impact, they began targeting the very systems that allowed the vessel to see, to communicate, to understand its surroundings. Signals that once carried clean, structured information started to degrade. Radar screens flickered and washed out. Data streams fragmented into inconsistencies. Communications broke down into layers of static and distortion, until coherent links between systems began to vanish entirely. Within minutes, a vessel designed to observe the battlefield found itself cut off from it, stripped of the ability to perceive, interpret, or coordinate. It wasn't destroyed. It was neutralized in a far more decisive way, rendered blind, deaf, and isolated inside its own technological limits. And then came the psychological shift. The ocean, calm just moments before, began to move differently. Subtle at first, then unmistakable. Water displaced from below, not by wind or surface current, but by something rising through the depths. A presence pushing upward through pressure and concealment, until, without warning, a submarine emerged into view. Close enough to be seen, close enough to be understood. This was not accidental exposure. Submarines are built to remain unseen, their strength rooted in invisibility and uncertainty. When one surfaces deliberately, it's never out of necessity. It is intentional. It is communication without words. It signals that it was already there, already observing, already integrated into the situation long before any of the visible movements began. Its emergence is not a tactical requirement. It is a message, a quiet but unmistakable declaration that the balance of awareness was never one-sided, and that the engagement had been unfolding under watchful eyes from the very beginning. Information, dominance, and modern warfare. Reality. For the crew on that intelligence vessel, the realization would have been immediate and deeply unsettling. Every move they had made, every signal they had sent, every calculation they relied on, had been under observation the entire time. The escalation ladder had been climbed step by step, but the response remained controlled throughout. No overreaction, no chaos, only a sequence of actions designed to remove capability, establish dominance, and communicate consequences with precision. This is what modern naval power looks like. Not just missiles or ships, but decision speed and integration. The ability to act across air, surface, subsurface, and electronic domains faster than an opponent can process what is happening. And that is where the real imbalance lies. Because while one side operates with decentralized authority that allows decisions to be made in seconds, the other often depends on layered approval structures, where hesitation is not only possible, but built into the system. That difference turns minutes into vulnerabilities. By the time the full scope of the situation became clear, the engagement was already over. The drone was gone. The launching platform was compromised. The surrounding forces had re-established control. And just as quickly as it escalated, the scene returned to normal. Aircraft resumed operations. Ships returned to formation. And the submarine disappeared back beneath the surface, leaving no trace of its presence. There was no dramatic aftermath, no visible damage, just a silent shift in understanding. Because the real outcome wasn't physical destruction. It was informational dominance. Every signal, every emission, every reaction during that engagement was recorded, analyzed, and stored. Patterns identified, and tactics understood for future refinement. What was intended as a test had revealed far more than expected. And that's the risk of operating in the gray zone. It only works if the opponent isn't fully aware or fully prepared. In this case, both assumptions failed. What unfolded in those 12 minutes wasn't just a tactical response. It was a blueprint for how modern conflicts are fought and won before they're ever officially declared. Because the battlefield isn't defined by geography anymore, it's defined by awareness. And in that domain, The side that sees first, decides faster, and acts without hesitation doesn't just win the engagement. They control the narrative of what happens next. If this breakdown gave you a clearer picture of what's really unfolding beyond the headlines, make sure to support the channel with a like, subscribe for more deep dive analysis, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next.